Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the subject that touches many lives but often goes unnoticed. Childhood emotional neglect and how it shapes our romantic relationships in adulthood. So whether you've experienced emotional neglect yourself or you want to learn more about somebody you care about, this video is for you. So what is it? When we're referring to childhood emotional neglect, we're referring to a situation where a child has their emotional needs consistently unmet. It isn't necessarily about what was done to you, but what was missing in your life. It's the lack of love, the lack of empathy, the lack of mirroring, the lack of warm, nurturing environment, the lack of shared experiences with your primary caregivers and your parents that let you know that you matter, that you're important, that you can voice your needs and concerns and they'll be taken into account. So when we lack experiences like these, what ends up happening is we internalize these self-beliefs. I don't matter, I'm insignificant, I feel worthless, I'm unloved, I'm unlovable, I don't deserve love, nobody cares about me, the world is a cold place. And often people who experience childhood emotional neglect struggle to articulate what it is exactly that feels wrong to them. It's just this persistent background feeling of I'm not enough, I feel abandoned, I feel lonely, I feel isolated. But it's very challenging to put into words because we're referring here to something that was missing, not a negative event that we can describe. So we often lack the right words to describe it. Some examples of what you may have heard as a child if you experienced emotional neglect include things like big girls, big boys don't cry, everybody has problems, deal with it, figure it out on your own, I don't have the time for it, you're just doing this for attention, toughen up, you'll be fine, just get over it, among many more. So while we grow up and we leave our parental home and we think, thank God I'm gonna now build my relationships very differently, we take ourselves with us. And this lack of nurturing leaves deep scars that have profound, long-lasting effects on our relationships in multiple ways potentially. So let's explore some of them. First of all, let's talk about trust, lack of trust. Because when we grew up feeling unloved, feeling that we don't deserve love, then when we engage in romantic relationships, we will often look for cues and for evidence that will support our internalized belief system of I'm impossible to love or other people will betray me. So oftentimes we'll engage in self-sabotaging behaviors such as finding evidence of our partner not caring about us and then leaving the relationship for the fear of being rejected. So say if a partner is ill or they're busy with a project and we interpret something that they do as them not loving us or us not being significant and important in their life, we might pick an argument, pick a fight, we might keep people at a distance, and all of this will prevent us from developing these deeper emotional bonds that take time and shared experiences to develop. Next up is the fear of intimacy. If we didn't experience that intimacy in childhood, we're going to struggle to see how that looks like in adulthood, or we're going to struggle to see that it's available for us. So very often we're going to be reluctant to engage in that emotional intimacy. And so this makes it very challenging for us because on the one hand, we really want that emotional intimacy. And on another hand, we're pushing it away, perhaps because it was also not part of our family culture. For example, expressing love and warmth was something that was never done. And let's not forget about self-esteem. Now, we develop our self-esteem as children when we get that validation from our primary caregivers, from our parents, and we build that inner confidence into our own self-belief systems, and then we walk with that into our adulthood. When that doesn't happen, we want to get that need met from seeking constant validation from our partners. And when we don't get it in exactly the way that we feel that we need to, we'll interpret that as, of course, I knew it, I'm bad, or I don't deserve love, or I'm not good at this, or I'm just not good. And the point is, no matter how much validation we're given externally, it will never feel like enough. It almost feels like that deep, dark hole that you throw, all the nurturing and the validation into, but it can never be filled. There's a very good reason for it. This pattern was developed in childhood in relation to our primary caregivers, to our parents, and this was the job of our parents and of our primary caregivers to help us build that self-belief. But it can never be done by a romantic partner, because we're at a different level in the hierarchy. Our partner is not our caregiver. Our partner is at a peer level with us, not at a parent-child dynamic. And of course, it's healthy to receive validation from our partners and from our significant relationships. We just simply cannot fill that parental gap with it. So addressing that as part of your own healing journey and as part of your own therapy will simply help you to be able to receive that validation and love and warmth from your partners, and to feel like that's enough, and to be able to discuss and talk about the ways in which you need some of your needs met. And it also, in general, leaves you open to being attuned to people that may not validate you. And here we're moving slightly beyond the romantic relationships, but if you're, first of all, internalize the belief that I'm not good enough and I need validation externally to finally believe that I am good enough, what often happens is, as we're primed for lack of that validation, we will always find people that will show us that we're not in fact good enough, because that's something that we're used to. We're used to the lack. We're not used to feeling validated. So our nervous system will be primed to almost look for danger, look for those people, environments that will prove to us that we're not enough. So you may walk into the room full of people and 99 of those people will absolutely love you and think very highly of you. And our nervous system is interesting like that. It will find that one person that you will see or feel like they give you a disapproving look, and most of your energy will then be channeled towards that person, towards either finding ways to prove that you're worth, or to seek validation, or to feeling resigned and hopeless about the fact that, yes, I knew it, I am in fact unworthy. And all of those 99 people will not matter then. And so an added component to healing and therapy is actually rewiring our nervous system to stop looking for cues of danger all the time, to make the familiar unfamiliar and the unfamiliar familiar. So if we're used to meeting indifference and that's familiar to us, we can make that unfamiliar and indifferent to us and look for cues of, where can I go? What is the environment where I feel good and I feel valued? Another common effect of childhood emotional neglect is the lack of skill of expression. Now, if in our families it was not common to express love, to express warmth, perhaps our own caregivers and parents were uncomfortable with that kind of intimacy. Perhaps it was shameful to express love, or it was considered to be weak to express love, or it was unimportant, then we often internalize those same beliefs that we saw growing up. So expressing love may become uncomfortable for us, unfamiliar. It may be associated with fear. especially if we as children expressed love towards our parents and we were met with cold expressions and it was met with indifference, then we can develop this almost visceral fear towards reaching out and saying, I love you, or expressing that love and gratitude. Another part behind the lack of expression is actually being able to express your needs and to hold an argument. Very often we have this misconception about relationships that they're all, a good relationship is a relationship that doesn't involve conflict. Well, that's simply not possible, and that's simply not true. It's actually the relationship that doesn't have any arguments, that doesn't have any frustrations, is likely the relationship that is lacking true intimacy, because we're all different people with different needs, with different desires, with different perspectives. And so when two worlds meet, it's inevitable that we're going to have frustrations, that we're going to need to come to common resolutions. And that's perfectly normal. And actually, in situations where neglect did happen, we often view arguments as something where two people are not on the same side looking for a solution to a common problem, but it becomes a match of two people standing against each other. And it becomes a very isolating experience, and it is viewed as dangerous to the relationship because it leads to the relationship breakdown, when in fact it's something that has the potential to bring you even closer together. And it's not that you don't feel as deeply as anybody else. No, that's absolutely not true. It's that you lack that skill of expressing it. And so part of healing and part of therapy then becomes about learning to express all of your feelings and needs in an ecological, constructive manner according to different situations. And of course, this all sits on the foundation of the fear of rejection and abandonment. So we become hypersensitive to cues of potential rejection, of potential abandonment, because essentially that is a belief that is already in us, that is our own writing on the walls. We already have that, I'm insignificant, I'm abandoned. So all we're doing now is looking to confirm that. And this constant looking for danger where there might be none can put a significant strain on your relationships and also make you feel exhausted, because when our nervous system is constantly looking for danger and scanning for danger, it's exhausting. And that can actually lead us to avoiding relationships altogether, and connection being one of the prime goals for us as humans. This makes life much less enjoyable. Now, with all that said, if you experienced emotional neglect in childhood, that absolutely does not mean that your relationships will be doomed and you'll suffer through your entire life. No, but it just means that healing is necessary, and it can come through therapy, self-reflection, open communication with your partner. And it's very important to remember that it's a gradual process. I do not believe in magic pills. I do not believe that you can have one session of hypnosis and be magically cured and feel completely fantastic. It's a gradual process where each day you begin to feel better. If yesterday a frustration, an argument with your partner was unbearable and you were unable to express what you actually need, you ran out of the room, you slammed the door, and today you're able to stay in this challenging conversation, and it might still be very challenging for you, but you're able to stay with it, to self-regulate, not perfectly, to a degree, and to come to a form of resolution. That's a huge success. And with each day you can build up a library of these successes, because we have a tendency often to forget. We think of these big wins, of shiny things that measure the success. But actually, in healing, especially when you're dealing with complex attachment issues, It's a build-up of small wins, and then one day you wake up and you suddenly realize that after, all of this time, I actually feel pretty safe with my relationships, with myself. And one thing I want to leave you with is, please be gentle with yourself. If you're a survivor of childhood emotional neglect, if you hear the message of, I don't matter, I'm not important, I can't be loved, then what can happen is you lose sensitivity to your own needs, and it can almost be tempting to punish yourself if you're not moving fast enough according to your own expectations. You become your own kind of prison guard in that matter. And I want to urge you to be very gentle with yourself. And it's very normal to experience bad days. So say if you've been doing some healing work and things were going better, and then you're suddenly triggered and you have a big argument, that doesn't mean that nothing's working. It just means it's one bad day, but you're not starting from scratch. These triggers and reverting back to your old patterns is completely normal. And if you stick at it, the gaps in between will become bigger and bigger and bigger. And you'll start to build up your confidence in yourself, and you'll start to build up a picture of, I'm needed in this world, I'm lovable, I deserve love, my needs are absolutely met in this world. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content on relationships, attachment issues, neglect, personal growth, different modalities of therapy, and how you can approach healing. Thank you, and see you next time.